Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Tricked Before. This time, interface. Yeah. Interface was a term back in the 90s, folks, and it still is. You know it because it worked. They probably drive you crazy with it. Interface. Hey, want to interface with us? Follow us on Facebook. It's All Been Tricked Before. It's out there. It's a lot of fun. Great. I every time I look at it, I laugh, or quite often, especially, and maybe because it's saying things about me, and I like it when people talk about me. But regardless, come out there, fire up that conversation, and get away from the Reddit thread. What Woozy did wrong last week. Follow us on Facebook. It's All Been Tricked Before, and follow us now if you can. Interface with us on Interface. It's All Been Tricked Before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Tricked Before. Your regular hosts are here.
This is Steven.
I'm the callback reference that only a handful of people will understand.
And I'm Jimmy-Jerome. That was Keith, of course. We're here to talk the Next Generation episode, Interface, First Impressions. That's a great first impression.
Well, it's reminding me that there are, I probably have seen far less of this final season than I would have even realized. And usually by now there's something that would go, oh yeah, that. But yeah, so far, I'm pretty sure that just was not catching it at this point. So I guess I'm looking forward to all kinds of surprises, except of course when you're watching on Paramount Plus and other services. Sometimes they show you pictures of things. It was like, I kind of didn't want to have to read the synopsis and see a picture of something before we get into this. Like, and wait now.
Yeah, when I hit play now, I immediately hit it. I'm like, oh crap, hit play now. I don't want to see anything.
Yeah. There's at least a setting you can use to turn off the autoplay where they're actually showing you like video scenes from it. Right. But they'll still give you like a still image. Mm-hmm. They jumped right to him being in. But that was pretty. Oh, okay. No, all right. That did kind of spoil something for me because the cold open. You're like, hey, what's going on? We can see Geordi's eyes. What's going on with this? But I already figured it out because we saw the still image, or I did, of what's probably going on in the other room.
I didn't.
IMDb has the still image with the visor on, so they were not.
For whatever reason, it still took me another 30 seconds to be like, oh, wait a minute, why isn't he wearing a visor? So yeah, my first impression was, at first I liked it. I was like, oh, this is a good introspective Geordi episode. And then it was like, we're still here? What? it went in a lot of circles. And it was like, it didn't, it didn't have an arc or a build. It was just like, yep, we're here, and we're just going to keep driving in a circle here, which is a bummer because I thought, and I'll get more into this later, but it's like you have this plum storyline of his parents, even though we've never met them. Ben Vereen is one of them, and it gets like 30 seconds. And Madge Sinclair, who I love as well, and has Star Trek bona fides, she was fine and all, but still, it was just like, I even read when I was doing my little bit of research, they thought there wasn't enough to it, so they wrote in the Riker Geordi scene, talking about parents and all that, which I actually like that scene, but they should have written some more scenes like that because I felt like they were just like, well, we're just going to keep telling the same thing.
So, this may have been my favorite Geordi episode so far, and still sucks. So it was not a good episode, but at least he wasn't creepy in it. At least we got LeVar Burton doing good acting, and not that LeVar Burton's always a good actor, but we got LeVar Burton doing good acting and without the creepy bad writing that they often give Geordi.
Giving him something meaty to do with acting.
Yeah, just the episode was lame.
Right. Yeah, I thought everything he did was fine. Ben Vereen was fine. Madge Sinclair was fine. Everybody was fine.
It wasn't the acting.
No, I agree. Exactly. I agree. I just thought you've got this. It's like, oh, I have a great idea for an episode, and then you didn't. You wrote a couple good scenes, and then
it was written by Joe Menosky. And if we look at his previous episodes, because we've talked about him before, he wrote Darmok. He wrote Hero Worship. He wrote Time's Arrow Part 1 and 2. The Chase and Suspicions, And he has 2 more episodes in this last season that he wrote. I don't know why they let this guy keep writing the show. He's not a good... Darmok, arguably decent. He was executive story editor in season 4 before he started writing all these episodes. But seasons 5, 6, 7, where he's just a writer, by and large, he is not writing good episodes. Directed by Roger Weimer. We've talked about him before. So we start out the episode. Geordi has eyes, and apparently he can still tell the temperature of something by sight without his visor, because he says that thing is 2,000 degrees. And I'm like, I think that's something you need your visor for. I don't know how you're telling the temperature by sight.
This is strange. Yes, lots of strange things are happening. What's going on?
That fire was really bad CGI, first of all. Which it may have been intended to be, because it's not him actually seeing it. It's a sensory input. So maybe that's all the sensory input. You could make an argument that that's logical that the fire looks bad, but it does look bad.
Keith, I thought
and he
this
reaches
might have been your most instant gratification ever, because I think they said interface like in the first line.
Oh, I missed it.
It's 2,000 degrees, but he reaches right in next to it.
Right.
Yeah.
As we eventually pull out, we see him in this weird suit with wires and tubes all over it. We find out they're transmitting through his visor inputs, which is pretty cool. It also makes me think maybe he is still seeing things the way he sees in the visor, except it doesn't really totally make sense for other parts of the episode. They're not consistent with what he's seeing. Yeah. Whether he's seeing what regular eyes see or what his visor would see. Because he can see himself in a reflection. And he's like, I forgot what a handsome guy I am, even though he was born blind and has never seen himself. Except
maybe that was part of the joke. I'm not sure. I thought the probe looked like, not V'ger.
Nomad?
Nomad, yes. Which I appreciate.
Yeah.
And
the symbol for the probe.
Yes. Yeah. I thought, initially I thought, oh no, it's a holodeck variation.
Nope.
Some kind of holodeck, but it wasn't. But later, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead and I'll come back. But eventually, of course, the safety overrides didn't work later, just like a holodeck. So they got there anyway.
I was actually watching this episode with Q earlier, and they brought up an interesting point that I hadn't even really considered, and they sort of addressed it by the end, with how the interface was working, or rather, what did the probe actually look like?
We saw it a few times.
Oh, I must have. Yeah, I must not have been looking.
It was it looked like Nomad.
It was like on a screen behind him. Yeah, it looked very original series.
Okay, because I remember seeing like the symbol of it, like for the readout, like in the middle of the readout, across the top, saying this is what they're looking. I didn't think that it actually looked like that, though. But that's probably what it was then. For the purposes of the audience, we're seeing Geordi, right? Just walking around and doing things.
Yeah.
So it's not humanoid at all. I mean, like, what was it doing to touch things?
That's what I wondered as well. It definitely had tractor beams and phasers that it could shoot. But yeah, the touching thing, again, they weren't consistent with how that would work.
So when we first started thinking about that, when I don't know if we're jumping too far ahead in the sequence, but whatever. So Riker comes in, acknowledge that Geordi might be grieving. And very, very, a good basic sort of calm due diligence way. You're listening to your dead mother, or potentially dead mother right now. We don't know. Geordi points that out and offers to do it in place of him. And so I'm thinking, wait, Riker's gonna be driving around this humanoid figure that looks just like Geordi. And it was like, wait,
no, it's a
and so it was kind of. Yeah, I was a little confused at first.
But they said that Geordi's inputs are what's
new alternate episode.
They said it's that would be interesting. They said I think I saw that movie. It's called White Chicks. No, the opposite. They said they were using Geordi's visor input, so it would take like a whole day to reprogram it for Riker because he would not input the same way or have the same stimulus feedback. But yeah, before we even get to that, the Riker and the logic of that, which again, they were just totally inconsistent with how they presented this probe. So whatever. But the scene immediately following where Geordi's watching his mom's message on the screen, we don't know at first that this was recorded 3 weeks ago. It's presented as if it's a real-time conversation.
Right.
And it's the first time
I assumed pretty quickly that's what he was doing, like going through old messages. I can't remember what the clue was, but
I thought it was a real-time message.
Maybe it wasn't meant to do. Well, it's I think before Riker came in, he started to sort of talk over in certain places as though you can tell you're talking to a TV or a message rather than her.
Right, but it would still, in my mind, be like he just received this. He's just playing it back. Right. It's a real time. It's not from 3 weeks ago. But yeah, that as Stephen mentioned, Sylvia LaForge is played by Madge Sinclair, best known for Coming to America, The Lion King, Trapper John M.D., Gabriel's Fire. Only 54 credits, surprisingly. She does have one previous Trek credit, though. In Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, she played another starship captain, the captain of the Saratoga.
Oh, wow.
Which, funny enough, Sisko lost his wife on the Saratoga. I assume the Saratoga A or something, or another version of the Saratoga. But yeah, another connection there.
The Saratoga C, probably.
But it was interesting to learn that Geordi's mother was a captain and what that meant when you're thinking about him. I mean, he talked about not being his parents. They weren't clear if his parents were still married or divorced, but either way, they were not stationed together. So he had to go between them as a child. And one of the first things we find out is his mom's a total yenta, which I guess captains are controlling of things. So it makes sense that she's trying to control Geordi's dating life, even though he's not working under her. This also means in newer Trek that when Geordi, sorry, Keith, plug yours for 10 seconds.
Okay.
In newer Trek, when Geordi's daughters are Starfleet officers, they're at least third generation Starfleet officers, if not fourth. So that's kind of cool that legacy of the family. You're good, Keith. Yeah. Just that finding out about Geordi. And we learn later his dad, Dr. Edward LaForge, played, as Stephen mentioned, by Ben Vereen. This is his only Trek credit, but best known for All That Jazz. Roots, where'd she start with LeVar Burton? He played Jimmy George.
Yeah.
So
My God.
LeVar Burton's grandson, and now he's playing LeVar Burton's father.
That's funny.
I think Madge Sinclair also had a small part in Roots as well.
Oh, did she?
Yeah.
I didn't even notice.
Yeah. But yeah.
So yeah, both have, I mean, he has a lot more credit. He has 83 credits.
He was in the original Jesus Christ Superstar on Broadway, and he won a Tony for Pippin, the original production of Pippin. So
nice. Yeah, he looks extremely familiar when I see his IMDb picture. I did not recognize him in the episode, but on IMDb, I'm like, oh no, I remember him. I do not see a credit for Madge Sinclair for Roots on IMDb.
I thought maybe I'm making that up.
Hang on, it wasn't fully. You're right. She played Belle Reynolds. Okay. I don't remember who Belle Reynolds was, but she did 3 episodes, part 3, 4, and 5. I didn't have IMDb expanded. I'm looking up Belle Reynolds right now. She was a slave owned by Dr. William Reynolds. She was the wife of Kunta Kinte. So she played LeVar Burton's wife in that, and his mother in.
No.
Well, it might have been when John Amos was playing.
It wasn't. Toby Waller. It was when Toby Waller was playing. So it wasn't LeVar Burton. Yeah. But it was LeVar Burton's character.
Oh. Okay.
When he was older. Or not all the way older, because John Amos was the older.
Yeah, doesn't John Amos end up playing Kunta Kinte? Or am I making that up?
Yeah, John Amos does play Kunta Kinte.
Okay.
But I see his picture on the Roots wiki page I'm looking at for Belle Waller, but it also says that Kunta Kinte was played by Toby Waller.
And of course, John Amos.
Oh, I'm sorry. Toby Waller is Kunta Kinte's slave name, not an actor's name. Because remember, his name's Toby. Kunta Kinte, Toby. Yeah.
Right.
Gotcha. That's why it says Kunta Kinte in parentheses Toby Waller. So you're right. John Amos. She played John Amos
also in Coming to America with Madge Sinclair.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
There were only there were only 10 black. There were only 10 black actors in Hollywood in the 80s and 90s, so that's why they're all in.
Oh, he's so good.
Well, that's
they both are.
Yeah. Sadly, that's probably not much of an exaggeration as far as the way that they would cast things, but but yeah, by then playing Eddie Murphy's parents in Coming to America.
Yeah. He was the girlfriend's dad, McDowell, and Madge Sinclair was Eddie Murphy's. Eddie Murphy's dad was, of course, our Star Wars podcast.
James Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones, yes.
So we find out that Geordi's mom's been missing for 3 weeks. And Riker tells Geordi, do you need time off? Which proves that Starfleet is not corporate America, because they wouldn't even give him 3 weeks off if she was dead, let alone just missing. And then, you don't get any time off for your parent just being missing in corporate America. The benefits of a utopian future.
Replicators and, androids and stuff that will probably go a long way to help.
So Keith mentioned the touch. I had written down at this point, so a probe can check the pulse of somebody. I would assume it uses some type of sensor. but
Sensor.
Oh, right.
Censor.
Yes.
We saw that Geordi's dad is a commander rank, so lower ranked than his wife. Of course, they're the future, so it won't be an ego problem. He wears blue, which I guess he's a doctor, so that makes sense. Although it seemed like he was a scientist doctor, not a medical doctor.
Exozoologist, my favorite Tumblr fashion show. Let me see if I can edit this so we can use it. But they say, also a fun fact, Geordi's dad is an exozoologist, which means he studies animals from other planets. But that seems like a pretty Terra-centric term to use, and I would like to posit that 24th century Twitter would be all over this. Huh. On the other hand, Geordi's mom outranks his dad, so take that, patriarchy.
They had mentioned his dad's job in the earlier episode Imaginary Friend. His parents had been mentioned before. We've heard mentions of his family, we just hadn't seen them until now.
Right, yeah.
They also mentioned in this he had a sister, which I don't think we ever see. I could be wrong, but I know she's not in this episode. I don't think we'll ever see her. They're already planning the funeral, which really confused me because how often in Star Trek do crews go missing or presume, and then they show back up? Like 3 weeks does not seem enough to go ahead and declare them missing.
Exactly.
Well, and this points, I think, to the writing issues with this episode is like they don't really explain. I didn't feel like maybe this is just me not paying enough attention or writing notes, but I didn't feel like they explained what actually happened to their ship.
What they said was the specific way in which she went missing means that we can go ahead and declare her dead and have the funeral. So I guess that's supposed to answer those of us that are like, people go missing all the time. Why are you having a funeral after 3 weeks? But because they didn't tell us how, it still leaves them open for us to keep complaining about it.
Yeah. Well,
and the fact that Geordi is so like, we don't know. She's just missing. And we're all like, yeah, people go missing all the time. Why are they having a funeral yet? It was not well done.
I thought you were arguing the other case as you were saying that it is sufficient in the way that they might not have written themselves into a corner at some point for the sake of canon and consistency later on. They're keeping it vague. They have data show up to tell us, all these other ships that have had this happen to them, the percentage was something, incredibly unlikely.
Unless there were main characters in a TV show, and then it's 100%.
Right.
As we know from Lower Decks, the main characters never die permanently.
Right. So they needed a device, a plot device, for something to have happened recently enough to surprise Geordi during this thing.
Right.
But also be final enough and then also leave enough doubt. And also, I don't know. It kind of works. I think we thought about something. You could probably come up with different kinds of crises to accomplish that. But who knows?
I think it's the fact that every other character, including Geordi's father and sister, have given up, but Geordi hasn't. That feels really weird and makes you not root for Geordi. It makes you think there's something wrong with him. Although then we have the same thing, and this is something I wrote just as a general note for this episode. How many times, how already has like a staff member, one of the main crew, told Picard, hey, this thing's happening. I can't prove it. I can't explain it, but it's happening. And he's just taken their word for it. And Geordi says, this is my mom. And he's like, nope, you're wrong. And it's just like, dude, no, you just had that episode last season. Was it last season where Beverly, the whole universe was closing in around her, and he took her at faith with no evidence and just went with it. And I know that's Beverly and it's a different relationship, but it felt really wrong for the chemistry and dynamics of the show that Geordi's the only one that believes it and everybody else says you're in denial. And again, the specifics could convince us that that's the way it should be, but because we don't get the specifics, it feels wrong.
So the other factor, for lack of a better term, maybe it's like interface psychosis of some sort. I think maybe we're supposed to start considering that. That's his head is getting messed up while he's doing that. He's escaping into it at the same time. And I was kind of all over the place while this was going on as far as the episode. But I
started to tune out for part of it. Like I'd say minute 28 to 38, I was barely paying attention because I was just so out of it. I was done with it.
Yeah. So my what I was going to bring up here though, what was the resolution? Was it so there were some actual entities that were in his head trying to convince him of this sort of they're pulling this stuff. So that I suspected that as soon as
I suspected it, or right before I tuned out, I suspected that's what it was.
Yeah, so data helps him. He explains all these things, but he's like, you know what? I know we're doing that thing, that trope where your friend is like, well, if you're going to do this, I'm going to make sure you don't die.
Yeah.
And he's down there, and immediately his mother appears to confirm his suspicion, like word for word.
Yeah.
One thing is I was going to say at the beginning. This is kind of funny, kind of mean, kind of realistic, whatever. You said was Stephen or Jimmy? I can't remember which one you said. It seemed to be going in circle, like the story just seemed to keep. You weren't getting anywhere, and that's what some people might say about grief. I mean, it's this.
Well, that right leads my next question is, where are we on Dabda? Because I don't feel like we just stayed on denial. Dabda.
Oh, gotcha.
So I think that does. I think that's a good explanation, Keith. I mean, I think that's giving the writer more credit, but I think that's also that also makes sense, though.
Well, here's my other thing, though. So let's take for granted that the specifics convince us that nobody else should believe this except for Geordi.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, let's just set that aside and forget all this other stuff we've been complaining about. But then when he tells Picard this, because we know that Picard believes and cares about his senior staff, Picard should offer to investigate in some other way than hooking Geordi into the machine. Because basically Picard's like, nope, we're done. We're not going to investigate at all because it's too dangerous to put you in the suit. There's no other way you can try to investigate. Nothing else you can do.
Yeah. Wow.
And Riker had already volunteered to do it.
And even if it's not that, take a shuttle a little closer, take some other readings, do a different type of scan, have Data like ponder how else could we prove or disprove this. You're not doing anything except saying, oh, it's dangerous, we give up.
And again, I think that points to a lack of imagination in this episode. Unfortunately,
it's just so badly written.
Because I think the Dabda dealing with the grief, I think that's another angle that could have been, because I actually like the Data trying. I put it in quotation marks, but Data comforting Geordi. I thought it was a good scene. I thought the Riker scene they added in with Geordi was a good scene where he's like, "No, man, I get it. I'm going. You're staying." And da da da. And I thought that was a good scene too. And even the Troy scene was all right. But
I think you've helped me convince myself of something. Actually, both of you in that sense is that I was kind of throwing that out there, but I think the problem is this episode was sort of ahead of its time, and it's what the writer was trying to do. I know that reaction. My point is. Nowadays, we've seen so many episodes or so many movies or TV things where they are explicitly trying to, this is how grief works, or this is what it's like for somebody who's experiencing that. And there is much more data for them to have worked from, psychology. So many things have happened in the last couple of decades that the writer probably might not have been informed enough, and there wasn't enough in the mainstream for him or her to come across as eloquently as some of the more creative things we've seen. But I think that was probably their focus. This is sort of like this feels like they were dealing with something themselves and trying to express it in something, but then trying to shoehorn in, not shoehorn, but what I'm saying, like when you're writing something backwards like that, we've talked about you have a couple scenes. You have a couple of ideas I want to get across, but how do we explain all these other things and you start tacking those things in there,
Well, and I guess maybe to answer my question, maybe if we went through and broke it down, Dabda does end up happening. Obviously, there's acceptance at the end, I think. And we obviously started with denial. And I finally got these down. The first day is anger, it's bargaining, and then depression. And maybe he does go through all these here.
Yes, but
But not. I agree with you, Jimmy. It's not satisfying at all.
Right. No, I'm not. I'm going to say this is not even the more conventional takes. This is what I'm getting at. It's not even about the progression. It is just staying on one of those steps and kind of glorifying that sort of I'm all alone in this pain and no one's going to listen to me and accept and blah blah.
Well, and I also think we had it in TNG. I feel like we already had a dead parent or somebody before, and I mean we can go back to Shortly. You had a similar that whole episode is about I just ran into my girlfriend who I loved so long ago, or Kirk ran into his college buddy from the academy or whatever, and that kind of stuff. That same kind of images in the head and believing that because Kirk's like, what's he doing here and what's Eve doing here and all that jazz. And I know we have that in some other episodes, and I think I've brought up, I know Action Comics had I feel like Superman's revisited several times, but Pa Kent still being alive, essentially. Every time it ends up obviously being something else, but but each time Superman believes it, and it makes sense. He's Superman, and there's a if you rule out the possible, then it can only be the impossible. But
Right.
so I think that's a common theme, and probably if I went back and read those, I'd realize, oh, this is Dabda going on here too. But I was 12, and I know I cried at the end of that comic arc. So I didn't cry at the end of this, which was I cried for LeVar Burton and Ben Vereen and Matt Sinclair because they're good actors, and we should have got more. We should have got to see more out of them, and we didn't. So
I wish they'd been reoccurring characters before this point. If we'd seen Geordi's mom a few times before this, it would really make it more effective.
That's another great point. It didn't feel invested in. There were a concept. I wasn't even sure if his parents were supposed to have been alive or what his relationship was with them before.
They've been mentioned before. At least his father has for sure. But yeah,
but so briefly.
Sinclair gives me some kind of attachment, but other than that, it might as well be Shatner with a mustache. To go back to Operation Annihilate.
The hero worship, both of his parents are mentioned. Imaginary friend, his father was mentioned. So we had a couple of mentions of his father and one mention of his mother prior to this. Nothing.
We talked about Data letting him go down. Is that showing emotion?
I don't think it's showing emotion. I think he's imitating what a friend should do based on what he knows of.
That's my entire existence. Maybe I'm an Andrew.
That is. I mean, that was my thought too. Essentially, that not Stephen being Andrew. The way that Data was playing the scene, you can see that kind of working.
Yeah, that makes
his version of that kind of playing across his face of making pragmatic decisions in the moment.
Yeah,
but as I said, this is like the trope you see so many times of your best friend showing up to try to stop you from doing something, but having that conversation. Well, it's like, I can't stop you, so I know it's dangerous.
And Data actually could stop him physically.
Right. Well, you're right. And even legally, he was saying he could just call somebody right now and have somebody else do it.
He outranks Geordi. He's stronger than Geordi. He's faster than Geordi.
It's probably some subroutine. The friendship algorithm is like, you know what? This is what I should probably do.
I mean, that scene where Geordi's talking to Data previous to this, I like that Geordi's he's doing that thing where people want to talk about it, but Data doesn't fish. Awesome. And then he's like, Data, you should have fished. You should have kept pushing. And I appreciated that Geordi actually said that because he's got enough awareness of Data to know it's not Data's fault. And this is a good learning experience for Data rather than just walking away passive aggressively.
Yeah. Well, not only that, I was actually convinced. I was convinced along with Data that Geordi really didn't, because
that's true. He did not do a good job of hinting he wanted more.
Right. Up to that point, he'd been pretty adamant about, I'm right, everyone else is wrong, and this is this thing. But he really, Sorry. So I thought it was a good credit to, I think you're obviously saying that anyway, but Geordi's character, that he did that, but also having the self-awareness to admit that he wanted someone to talk to about it.
Yeah. So a couple of details that we've kind of skipped past, but just going back, that notable to me, Data looking at a blank screen as poetry. I thought that was hilarious. That was like the one clever thing in this episode. Yeah. And then Riker.
Before we move on from that, I'm not sure if I understood correctly how that was playing out. So I think he explained, right, that sometimes there are long stanzas or pages of blankness between things, right? Not like an entire poem was blank.
So this poet apparently had like a specific amount of time you were supposed to stare at the blank screen. And that was the poem.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. When Riker comes to talk to Geordi, I appreciate and understand how Riker tries to relate it to his own mother being missing, because as far as Riker understands, it's a similar situation, even though it's not at all. And it's Riker totally missing the point. But I appreciate his effort.
Yeah. This is kind of where I almost want to give them more credit. Again, the writer, even though I might be giving them too much, but just the realism of that. Yeah. That is what people tend to do almost reflexively. Some people, that's how they relate to sharing trauma with someone, or that's their effort to try to defuse the situation by saying, hey, look, this, you'll get through it. I got through it because of this, but
Yeah, people tend to analogize.
Right.
Yeah. The fact that Geordi was just talking about his mom being missing, then she shows up on the ship was super suspicious, and that's when you
Really?
knew something else
Nah.
was going on. No, it was just one of those obvious plot devices.
Yeah.
And then his mom was fire, and we found that they were subspace beings, and Geordi saves
like
them
the
because
fire.
Geordi's not crazy. So I guess we were supposed to be like, you guys that were all down on Geordi, you shouldn't have been down on Geordi. He's not crazy. And yet you don't feel like that. You just feel like
He was
this
crazy.
is all a mess.
Or
I thought I missed something.
He lucked out. It wasn't.
Yes. Right.
I kept thinking I had the wrong ship. Like, oh, they're at her ship. And it's like, no, they're not. It's like, oh, okay, well, crap.
I will say, Patrick Stewart did some wonderful face acting at the moment where you actually think Geordi might have been permanently hurt or killed. Like when that whole suit feeds back and Picard comes in and he looks genuinely worried. Some of the best face acting from Patrick Stewart. So good.
Yeah. Just to backtrack a little bit. I felt like it might have come across as me mocking Jimmy for saying that it was, the suspicious thing of, yeah, of course, his mother showing up at the just exact moment, but suspicious in an ambiguous way. It could have been a lot of things. I mean, yes, it could have been just convenient writing, or it could have been, whatever. I think it's a good way to set up a textbook Star Trek mystery, which I don't mind usually. So
if it had been done less clumsily,
right.
Yeah,
I'm not on the mission of trying to convince you that this was well written at this point.
No,
but I mean, there's little things to salvage here and there still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought it's like I said, there's some scenes that I really liked a lot, and I think the bones of it, there's something there. But another example of this has happened in other episodes. I know specifically in the episode I liked, the enemy, the face of the enemy. Is that the
with
Romulan
Troy
guy?
becoming the Romulan? Yeah, face
the guy in that episode kept saying, "There's no time to explain," and his mother, Geordi's mother, in this episode says the same thing. There's no time to explain. It's like, yeah, there is. Just give me the elevator pitch. Give me something. Don't just tell me I can't explain. Just come on.
Yeah.
I mean, when's the last? Can you guys say the last time you told somebody there's no time for me to explain this?
I don't think so. I mean, it would have had to have been something like we need to make the beginning of a movie or something like that, or there's some surprise or something like that.
Like,
something,
just get in the car.
I guess we don't lead lives quite that exciting, luckily, because that's never.
I feel like I said that to my kids a lot.
That makes sense.
Just do it. It's time to leave. You've wasted enough time.
There you go. Right there. That's so. Yeah, so that's kind of realistic. His mother might show up and say that to him. Like,
other than parents, though, I think it's rare.
There's a reference to Deep Space 3 in this episode. Yeah.
Well, if there's a Deep Space 9, there's definitely a Deep Space 1 through 8.
That makes sense.
Hopefully.
Are they...
Actually, 9 is a surname. They named after somebody whose last name is 9.
They moved further
they
out.
named it after Hitler. 9.
Oh, God.
Because the Cardassians were like the Nazis.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
Deep Space 9.
What if they did?
Deep Space, no. It's always nice to see LeVar Burton without his visor.
Agreed.
Yeah. He's
agreed.
We're
gonna have to wait till the second film before we see it again.
Essentially, Avatar ripped Star Trek off, right? I mean,
of course,
that's what's going on here, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Geordi's Avatar, Geordi's. Yeah.
They're just like, we can't do it as a blind guy. Star Trek already did that, so he's in a wheelchair.
Right. Exactly. Yeah,
oh my God.
Exactly.
And this is gonna be one of the ones where the hill that I would probably end up dying on, along with Jimmy. Right? This is a much smaller hill, by the way. But the sticking point of making it like a V'ger type probe instead of, why can't it be a hologram or an android or any number of things they could have said they whipped up for Geordi specifically to have been calibrated to it. Something would explain why they're showing him to us when they cut to those shots and having that effect, the feedback, and pointing his hands and the fire. That would explain that. Why not? I don't understand. I guess lack of imagination.
An explanation of that, but keep talking and I'll find it and come back.
Yeah, but that's such a huge hole that feels like it could be pretty easily filled, even if you're vague about it. Yeah. I mean, we're pretty close to Voyager, and we get to see some things that could happen, or rather, some things that would become canonized would getting into the future Trek stuff, which is pretty elegant, actually. So I don't know.
Speaking of Voyager, there's Admiral Marcus Holt in this episode, played by Warren Munson, who is best known for Friday the 13th Part 8. Jason Takes, I assume, Manhattan. Down with Love, Executive Decision, and Intrepid. He's got 123 credits. His other Star Trek credit is he played Admiral Paris twice in Voyager before they recast the role.
All right. I know who
He's not the
is.
one who played Admiral Paris the most, but he played the first couple appearances
Interesting.
of Admiral Paris. Even though he wasn't dead, so I don't know why they recast, but there's a different actor that plays Owen Paris in most of his appearances.
Hardball of some sort.
I found the reason they showed Geordi. Director Robert Weimer stated that it would have been emotionally unrewarding to show the probe, then frequently cut to Geordi for reaction shots.
Of course, but why? But why is it written as a? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
But,
I know what you're saying. It should have been more like the Imperial probes with all the big eye man.
even that. But yeah, it could have been a humanoid shape of some sort.
Sure.
Or they could have just said Geordi is that we made the probe look like Geordi for whatever reason.
At the end, Picard says this incident's going in Geordi's permanent record. Like a school thing.
Yeah.
Permanent record. I'm not sure we ever hear I think we hear Starfleet mention permanent record occasionally again, but it's not something, I don't know. It just seems like a throwback to school days. So at the end, they're like, well, this was Geordi's chance to say goodbye to his mom. No, it wasn't. It was just some freaking aliens.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's why they were there all along. Really, they sensed that. No. Okay, but what were they trying to do exactly? I guess
they wanted him to take the ship. The ship they were investigating. The aliens had boarded it when it was lower in the atmosphere. It came up, and now they couldn't live at this port, so they needed it to go back down so that they could survive.
Oh.
So that's what happened. They ended up moving the ship back down so that they could survive.
Okay, well.
Which means they never recovered the bodies of the Starfleet crew that was on the ship. And how did that ship get further down anyway when it was already dangerous to get that far down? But whatever. That we don't have to answer these questions because the script's not concerned about being logical or make sense.
There's the whole thing of all these bodies, and then nothing's done with those.
Yeah, they don't even beam them up or anything. They just sacrifice them to the
ship, but not this. Yeah.
Well, they could only do so many bodies at a time, so they're kind of like, well, there's no point in doing.
And now there's some person back on Earth going, I don't believe my mother's dead because she's still in that ship and she's just missing now. She's just lower in the atmosphere. So. She's just missing. I haven't seen her body. Geordi didn't see her body. He only went through these rooms, and she was in another room. So maybe she's still alive.
Yeah, that's another.
That's all I got for this piece of crap. I guess my alternate episode is a cohesive episode that makes sense. Either do something on grief or do a good science mystery. Don't do them both half-butted.
I
hated this episode.
My alternate episode. I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed. My alternate episode was Geordi's upbringing. I wanted to see more. I would like to see.
Yes, absolutely.
Much more interesting.
Absolutely. Do you think anything else before we get to ranking?
This garbage episode. No, I'm kidding. I don't feel that strongly. But
I do.
I know you.
So I guess we could probably start toward the middle.
We've talked about this before. Like yesterday's Enterprise back in the original series. When your episode makes no sense, I get angry because it's so easy to make episodes make sense. Well, don't give me an episode that makes no sense.
Tomorrow was yesterday, right? Isn't that
whatever? The airplane. Whatever. You know what I'm talking about. Captain Christopher and the airplane. It was awful. It was so bad.
You made me hate that episode more than I thought I.
I'm still angry about that episode. Maybe the original series episode I hate the most.
It's pretty late
because it made no sense.
Actually, I think one of my favorite things about
other than Charlie X, I really hate Charlie X too.
About doing these reviews is just when Jimmy gets this type of angry, where it's just this humorous kind of level
even
of
when I
disagree,
I very much enjoy.
Right, but I mean this. I would say in most cases, including this one, there are some very valid concerns being brought up, and they are not ones. And this is I don't mind being immodest here. If I can't find a way to talk you out of that, then something's pretty wrong. As far as here's a couple of ways we could we're just workshopping things in a couple of seconds where we could have fixed it like this, and this, and it would just. I don't understand.
This episode takes too much fixing to fix. Yeah. If it's an episode where I basically check out for 10 minutes and let it run, I'm at that point. I'm at that anger point.
I think the fact that our two episodes were don't even do anything with this episode. Just make a different episode.
I'm really glad because Next Gen disc was already in the Blu-ray player. I watched this before the Deep Space Nine were reviewed last week, and I was so glad that I watched this episode first instead of that really good. Like that was a really good episode. And this is a really bad episode. And
Wait, are you sure that maybe
reverse? I'm get the bad out of the way. That's my personality.
Interesting.
So hopefully you guys appreciate the advice. I'm glad you took my advice and watched them in the same order because
I'm not sure how that. I don't know. I mean, it's even possible that you thought the DS9 episode was even better because of this for the contract pairing.
Yeah. Possible.
I guess we'll probably find out later in the season when we've forgotten so many things that have happened, and we're going like, why was this so good? And
well, with a name like Interface, I feel like we're going to forget what it was about every week.
And only the Patreon viewers know because all the times we're like, what's that episode? And then we said what the episode is. I cut all that from the podcast.
Oh, wow.
Because otherwise ranking would take so long. I just assume the podcast listeners will look it up themselves if they don't remember.
Yep.
So yeah, and I feel this is going to be famous last words, I'm sure, of course, and this is going to come back. But I feel like Interface will be easy to remember the name, or rather, what it goes to what. But who knows?
Maybe.
Wait, which one's Interface?
Yeah.
It's when the traveler interfaced with the ship's computer.
Is it the one where they get it right in her face? Boom.
Probably not
in
that one.
In her face.
Let's get to the rankings.
Yeah. I've already forgotten what the other two episodes were last week. But
the two Next Gen episodes that we've already seen.
I cannot remember.
We'll get to those in just a second.
Yeah.
But first, who was your annoyance?
Joe Manoski.
Oh,
that is an excellent choice. I chose Picard because he didn't even try to help Geordi or believe Geordi in the slightest or do any other type of investigation the way he would have for any other crewman.
That's and that's pretty much spot on. I mean, maybe Geordi, but I think it was more just so Picard.
Okay. Who you having a drink with?
I started with Geordi, then I went to Madge Sinclair, but I think Ben Vereen. I think I got to hang with Ben Vereen, man. I've loved that guy for a while. I guess I've loved.
So Geordi's father or the actor Ben Vereen?
The actor Ben Vereen. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm hanging with the actor.
Us.
Yes, he is. I'm hanging with the actor LeVar Burton because Geordi finally got an episode and it was this bad, even though he wasn't creepy. And again, LeVar Burton, it was not his fault.
No.
And from a other standpoint, Geordi could probably use a drink after what he went through, and I do have sympathy for that character as much as I hate this episode. Geordi deserves better than what he's getting.
Well, I mean, it would probably be between those two under the circumstances.
He's just going to go back and forth between their tables.
Yeah, but he takes his glasses on and off in between tables. He's a
this feels like one where I would probably have a lot of technical questions for Geordi under the circumstances of like, how's this thing working? Why is it like this? And
Geordi is a good choice. Oh, I guess the one other note I didn't mention is I had a fashion note. What'd you think of that suit?
I thought it was kind of cool.
It reminded me of the spacesuit Kirk and Spock were in the original series, except the red, yellow, and blue wires.
Yeah.
So there was like shiny silver, big outer suit, and his was like a close black, but it was the same kind of colored wires on the outside. It wasn't a great suit.
No.
For the 80s. It was a great spacesuit in the 60s. It was not a great suit for the 80s.
It was 90s by now, isn't it?
Early 90s. Yeah. Yeah, I think we're like 93. Yeah. You're right. Still. Ranking the episode. I'm starting at the bottom. Better or worse than Descent Part 2?
I think we should start in the middle.
Sure, better or worse than Descent Part 2? There's only 2 episodes.
I would have
This is number 3.
Wait. All right, you confused me. I thought you meant like there were 2 episodes total, but there were 3 episodes total, the two before her.
So we had Descent Part 1 and Part 2?
Part 1
was last season.
That's right.
Descent Part 2 is our number 2 of 2 at the moment.
Oh, that's lore and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Actually,
it wasn't great, but this is number 3. Solid number 3.
There's at least something. There was more stuff going on, at least in the.
It made a little more sense.
Yeah,
a lot more sense.
Well,
I think whichever one of you just said, there's a lot more going on in a good way. I think. Yeah, I wish there was a B storyline to this. Maybe it was
I had my quibbles with Descent Part 2, but it mostly made sense. It was mostly coherent.
Yeah. All right. Last
I'd
one.
already written it as number 3. So
What's number one? Number
Can't
one.
be erased.
liaisons. I don't even remember what it is. I don't care. It was better.
Oh, that's Picard almost. It's the diplomats.
Sure.
The new.
Oh yeah. The 3. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I did like that one actually. For
Yeah,
sure,
that was fun.
Yeah.
Next week, Deep Space Nine, Part 2. We're going to be continued. This is called The Circle. Kira spends time with Vedic Bareil on Bajor, just as the Circle begins receiving arms from an unknown source. So we'll have Lee Nahlis back. We'll have Vedic Bareil back. We'll have Vedic Wynn, Louise Fletcher back. It's going to be fun. Until then, live long.
And honor thy parents and prosper. Teach your children well while you're at it.
I am the episode that makes you check out 10 minutes at a time.
It's All Been Done presents.
Who's got the time?
Yeah. I was not as angry at watching this episode until we started talking about it. And then I just got angry. I wasn't angry watching it. I was just like, this wasn't a great episode. And then as we talk about it, I just got angry.
That's